So an obvious question might be how to love all the crazy people out in the world right now. I mean, especially with this new Delta variant stuff, there's a lot of angry, confused people raging on the internet and raging. Even just here Saturday, we had our monthly artisans market here at the Abbey, and we were supposed to have a food truck come and set up. And they got here early and they started setting up. But then the abbot, Lynn, went over to tell them that they had to wear a mask because Humboldt County now has a new mask mandate. So even in crowded outdoor situations, everyone has to wear a mask. And so he went and explained to them that there's this new mask mandate. Everyone has to wear a mask, and the vendors refused and started making like a scene and calling him a fascist and stuff, and like trying to kind of incite a riot from the other vendors there, like saying, who's with us, who's not going to wear a mask. And so I mean, this was like this whole little scene that we had here Saturday about the mask mandate. And stuff like this is playing out all over the country, I'm sure. And so when we're faced with this craziness, it can seem really hard. I mean, how do you love that, right? And but so another way, but we can still just look at it through the same lens. That so especially with all this stuff about COVID virus and vaccination, and whether you're for vaccinations or against it, and whether you're for face masks or against it, or whether you think it's all a conspiracy from the lizard people that control us. I mean, whatever you believe, so whatever beliefs that we have, we feel that we have no choice but to believe that, right? I mean, based on our life experiences and the things we've gone through and what we know and what we're seeing, we all feel like we have no choice but to believe what we believe, whether you're for vaccination or against it, right? Do you all feel like you have no choice but to believe what you believe? I mean, does that make sense? And so everyone else out there, they all feel based on their life experiences, based on their education or lack thereof. I mean, just based on everyone else out there, everyone who holds all those crazy beliefs that may be opposite of your beliefs, they all also feel like they have no choice but to believe what they believe. And if their belief seems unreasonable to you, and it seems like it's because of their lack of education or their ignorance, it's not their fault that they lack this education that you have. And it's still they need more compassion, they need more love. And people who hold these deluded beliefs, and I'm not making a stance on what is right or what is wrong. It's a very complicated issue. But whatever your belief, and whatever other people's belief, if someone's belief seems totally crazy and totally out of line to you, like I was saying before, there's some feeling deep at their core, some unresolved wound, some unresolved trauma that's causing them to have these thoughts to cling to this crazy belief. I read a really interesting article about how when people are overstressed, the neocortex, the thinking part of the brain, kind of shuts down, and we all just start reacting emotionally. So everyone's super stressed in the world, and when that happens, then we start thinking less critically, and then belonging to a group becomes very important. And so that's why these people that start believing these really crazy out there conspiracy theories or beliefs, that believing that they're part of this group that shares this belief brings comfort to them, to their nervous system. And so that's why people can cling to these outrageous ideas. And again, what they need is not someone screaming at them, telling them how wrong they are, how stupid they are, how ignorant they are. What they need is more compassion. What they need is more love, and maybe some mental health counseling. But hatred and anger is not going to make the situation any better. Any questions about that?
I think it's a lot easier to to say than to do in some ways. When I saw this news clip about these educators, a school board who basically is mandating masks at school, and the parents were after the meeting freaking out and screaming and yelling at the educators and the school board about, we know where you live, we know how to find you, and just like, I mean, the clip was unbelievable. And how do you find compassion in those moments? Like, how, if somebody is, or like the storming of the Capitol, let's say, or something like how do you, when it's so extreme, how do you find it in your heart to just roll over or just like pour love instead of wanting to like get in there and scream back at that person, or I just, I
Yeah,
think
well,
it's a really commendable to
mhm.
that. I just don't know how you do that.
Great. And so, yeah, these
So
are
any
like,
tips?
yeah, these are the obstacles that I want you guys to bring up and really consider. Because, I mean, yeah, it's hard to really try to love everything unconditionally. Um, so yeah, in those situations, and so first of all, I'm not advocating rolling over. I'm not advocating apathy or being passive. I mean, if someone's breaking the law, that needs to be stopped. Crimes need to be prevented. But those parents screaming at the school board, again, that's driven by some feeling deep inside them, and it's fear. I mean, oftentimes when we repress fear, because I've talked about this before, how as a culture we're taught to repress fear, not examine it. When we repress fear and shove it down in our subconscious, it often comes up later as anger. And so that anger that those people are expressing, that's because that's fear, because we're going back into some scary times. It looks like we might have to go back down to the lockdown. So there might be more people losing jobs, more economic consequences, more people getting sick, and more people dying. So there's lots of fear out there. And since we rarely ever embrace our fear and allow ourselves to feel it and express it, it often comes out as anger, and anger directed at other people. And so those parents, they're acting out of fear. And the people that stormed the Capitol in the insurrection, I mean, there's a lot of mental health problems in those among those people. I mean, I read some articles about some of the ringleaders there, and those people are obviously, they need serious mental health care, and but it's really hard to get that, and there's still so much stigma around that in our country that no one wants to admit it or address the problem head on. And so again, it can just help to have compassion for those people. Maybe if love is too much to start with, just start with trying to have compassion, just trying to understand that those people are lashing out from fear. Does that help? And also, I mean, meeting that anger with anger only escalates the situation. I mean, I'm sure you know this, but even when when we have that urge to meet anger with anger, um, it can help just think about it rationally. That's not going to help. And then, I mean, that anger arising in ourselves in response to anger, that's probably can be traced back to some fear that we have, right? It's fear of the unknown, fear of this crazy situation that we're finding ourselves in. You still seem unconvinced.
No, I'm not unconvinced. It's definitely something that has been a lifelong journey
Mhm.
trying to get to that place of not reacting and maybe not reacting, but being compassionate.
Yeah. So when we're struggling to have compassion, we're struggling to feel love, just focus on loving yourself more. I mean, sometimes it can be really hard to not react to strongly to people who are acting out egregiously. And in those situations, that's when what we need, what we need is more love. So just focus on loving yourself. And again, if you're in an abusive situation, like if someone's screaming at your face or threatening violence, then leave. Don't sit there and try to love them through it. I mean, if you're being threatened, if you're physically or emotionally, then always leave any kind of abusive situation. But at the same time, we don't have to meet that anger with hate and more anger.